Hi guys, and welcome to today's video. So a little while ago I did an update on all my leopard geckos, and today I thought we'd do an update on my Chahoua, Drogo and my Crested Gecko Lyra. So let's start off with Drogo and how he has been doing. As well as giving you guys an update, I will be answering some of the questions you left over on Instagram about each of the geckos. So if you didn't know, Drogo is a Chahoua, a Mossy Prehensile-Tailed gecko. I would say it's probably one of the least known about New Caledonian geckos. Like, most people know Crested and Gargoyle and Leechies, but it has to be said, I have even been asked by vets what a Chahoua is. I've never had to take him to a vet, but when I've said I have a Chahoua, they're like, what? So, yeah, he's a pretty cool gecko. Now, this year has been pretty standard for him, I will say. With my Crested Gecko and my Chahoua, weight-wise, nothing really changes. They will go down a little, they may gain a little, but they're always pretty much in the same region. Whereas with my leopard geckos, you know, the girls usually drop a fair bit of weight in summer, but it's pretty plain sailing with these guys. Now, one thing I have changed up this year with Drogo is what I feed him. So of course he has his Pangea, he has his watermelon, apricot, they're favourites of his, and Lyra's. I also give him sticky foot gold, same with Lyra. This is actually a diet that's made for people who are using UV systems with their gecko. So, and it's all natural, so that's all good. He likes that. And also he adores insects. Now, one pet peeve of mine is when someone gets, I don't know, they already have a Crested Gecko and they want a Chahoua or a Leechy, and someone goes, yeah, just keep them like a Crested Gecko. Just put them in the same size tank, like especially Leechies, people keep them in such small tanks. Maybe there's a reason behind that, they're such big geckos. But it really pains me when you see someone advertise a Leechy and say, oh, just give them Pangea, keep them in a small tank. You should definitely offer your geckos live feeders, and Drogo in particular loves insects. He'll always take insects. Pretty sure he ate most of his cleanup crew, so I definitely upped his insect intake. And the other day he even took on a Morio worm easily. So he will have crickets, Morio worms, the odd wax worm, mealworm pupa, like anything he can fit in his mouth, he'll eat it. And these guys also need extra calcium, especially girls, especially breeding girls. But yeah, their diet varies a bit from Crested Geckos, and that shouldn't be overlooked. But now for your Instagram questions. So It Mittens says, what does Drogo's body feel like? Is he dense or squishy, rigid or malleable? So, he's a lot slender, more slender than Lyra. I feel like they have a longer body, so it sort of spreads out. Not as squishy as a Crested Gecko. Very soft though, the same kind of skin feeling. Muscular, their tail obviously is prehensile, so it'll wrap around you. If you ever get a chance, if you're curious about getting a different gecko and you have the chance to handle one in a shop, you'll probably fall in love with that one gecko, but it gives you a good idea of how they move and what they feel like. The next question is, does he like Lyra? So Chahuas and Crested Geckos can technically breed and you get hybrids. I won't allow that to happen with these two, as much as they have cute babies. Chahuas can be quite aggressive breeders, so I don't want Lyra getting injured. So I'm pretty sure, given the chance, he would definitely like Lyra. They live next to each other, they see each other through the glass, but doesn't seem to bother each other, so yeah. And the final question is he the black sheep of all your geckos? He seems so different. So I think he's different in the sense that Crested Geckos and Leopard Geckos are like some of your standard beginner reptiles that people get, whereas Chahuas people don't really know as much about. So generally, if I post anything about Chahuas, people don't really click on it. I don't know who's going to watch this video, but if you have, please leave a like, appreciate it. But yeah, he is a bit different. Unlike my other geckos, he doesn't always like come up to me like excited to come out and be handled. Like, as you can see, he's fine being handled. He's very content. But he is just, yeah, he is a little different. And then we have Miss Lyra. Now, Lyra's year has been pretty good. I mean, once again, like Drogo, her weight hasn't changed too much. She possibly have laid eggs in her enclosure, but to this day I've kind of just left them in there because she tends to lay them amongst the roots of the plant when she does, so they are tricky to get to. But also, if they're going to be infertile, she hasn't been bred with, so they eventually break down, cleanup crew will break them down. On the off chance they're fertile through parthenogenesis, if you haven't seen my video about that and how they can asexually reproduce, then we have a little clone Lyra, which is honestly my ultimate goal. I don't know how I can influence that, but that would be amazing to just walk in and find a little baby Crested Gecko in her tank. But yeah, overall this year has been pretty good on Lyra. The only thing that's happened is she has a little scar on her nose, and what I think's happened is she's rubbed it on the wire mesh at the top of the Exoterra. And her tank, when I got her, was it looked kind of secondhand because she came with the tank. She was rehomed to me. So I kind of want to give her an upgrade at some point, possibly like Drogo in the Habitat tank, because it has a really smooth lid. Because it's got black mesh though, I do have to upgrade their UV, so instead of the 2.4% arboreal UV lamp, I would use a 7% shade dweller. That's just because black mesh isn't great for UV and letting that pass through. But I do really like the Habitat tank, so that might be an upgrade in the new year for Lyra. Now for your Instagram questions. So Howie says, in hindsight, anything you'd recommend for crested care and new keepers? So I would definitely recommend a heater. I know almost everywhere says they just need room temperature, but what you'll find is in the winter and autumn winter time, you might notice without heat that your Crested Gecko doesn't eat as much, isn't as active, and I definitely noticed that. And once I got the deep heat projector for both Lyra and Drogo, I noticed a massive difference. So I would definitely recommend that. And substrate. When I first got my first ever Crested Gecko, for like the first few days I used paper towel and realised this was never going to work. So I did switch to substrate quite early on, and I would definitely recommend that for new keepers. The next question is, does she randomly get kind of lethargic and then crazy again? Lyra is, are you going to jump? Lyra is actually never lethargic. She is a very active gecko. She's always using all the room in her tank. The only time I'll say her behaviour changes is around the time she's probably going to lay eggs. So she'll, like, as soon as you open the door, she comes to her front. She wants to come out. She wants to explore. She wants insects. So I'd say her activity level like increases, but I've never seen her really like lethargic. And then Pangea or Rapashi. We tried Rapashi at the beginning. It didn't really do much for my geckos, and they absolutely love Pangea. She particularly likes watermelon and apricot, like I mentioned with Drogo. And like Drogo, I offer her Sticky Foot Gold by Arcadia, as well as live feeder insects. And that's actually something like Lyra, over the years, it seems like the older she's got, the more she's increased like her want for insects. And the other day, she also had a Morio worm, which really surprised me. But yeah, overall Lyra is doing amazing. As you can see, she is nice and chunky. And I would say if you were picking out of like a leopard gecko or crested gecko and you wanted something that was less stressful in terms of going off food and all of that, a crested gecko is far easier in my opinion. Great jump, Lyra. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, guys, and goodbye.